I did all that, class 284, went through SQT class 284, and then ended up at SEAL Team 7. 8 days later, I was in France, and I joined the French Foreign Legion. I was a CEO of a company, raising millions of dollars in a high-rise, working for a venture capitalist, crushing it, so I could lie to myself and say, hey, I'm doing all this. Obviously, what I'm doing is right, but you can't bend reality and do those things for that long before I crashed and burned. Literally, I fell on my face from the too many opioids and smashed my whole face open. And 3 months later, I'm homeless, living in my truck on the east side Big Island of Hawaii, suicidal with a sawed-off shotgun on my lap. This is 2 years to the day almost from the time I got kicked out of the SEAL teams. And that's when I decided to make a change.
Welcome to the Performance Initiative Podcast.
Our goal is to provide you and ourselves with the tools to be the best versions of ourselves.
We are your hosts, Dr. Grant Cooper
and Dr. Zinovy Meyler. Welcome to Performance Initiative Podcast. We just wrapped up a conversation with Taylor Cavanaugh.
Taylor has amazing stories to tell. He's lived an extraordinary life. And it's not just his life stories that are so engaging and inspiring, but it's the lessons that he's learned from those hard-earned experiences that he's now looking to impart to others. But as a brief recap of those life stories, I mean, he had a tumultuous high school and college, getting thrown out of high school and college, ending up in jail, then goes on to excel in the Navy SEALs, but gets in trouble again, ends up then going into private industry, does really well, becomes an entrepreneur, doing really well, but then life takes a turn again. He ends up in his truck in Hawaii with a sawed-off shotgun, wondering if he's going to kill himself. Thank God he doesn't. Goes and joins the French Foreign Legion. Now he's really gotten his life together. He has a system in place, and he's really a man on a mission to share those hard-earned insights with the rest of us.
If there was a way to encapsulate him, which I don't think there is, it would be as a sage warrior. And the warrior as not just a military and elite military and high-performing military, but also as a warrior of life and a sage because he has earned his wisdom and he has learned the lessons, understands them, and tries to impart that wisdom now.
Absolutely. And as a hero, he's also extremely transparent and vulnerable and lets you see warts and all, makes him more relatable, and also I think makes him even more inspiring for the rest of us. We could go on and on about this conversation.
Absolutely.
It won't do it justice.
Absolutely.
So please enjoy the conversation and enjoy this episode.
Taylor, thank you so much for having this conversation with us and taking the time. Generally speaking, in our podcast, we tend to dive into the meat of the matter, usually. In your situation, we were drawn to your story, just like so many others that have been following you on social media. And because our questions are really informed by your story, we were going to ask you, if you don't mind, to give us sort of the run-through and the highlights of the highs and the lows of the roller coaster of the life that you've led up to now, and sort of the chaos, the self-sabotage, the heroics, and everything in between, so that we can start getting into it with that information. Perhaps starting, as you've previously described, around the age of 7, when you kind of got that drive to join the special operations.
Absolutely, guys. Thank you for inviting me, and I thank all the listeners for listening in. This is a very cool medium of exchange, you guys, and the approach you guys are taking is very unique. So I'm glad to be a part of it. 7 years old, San Diego, California. I had that special operations seed planted in me. My father pointed out some Navy SEALs training in the Bay at night, glow lights, and it spoke to me, spoke to my soul on a very deep level. That commando, that jungle commando, growing up in the early 90s, late 80s, Predator, all that stuff was coming up. It wasn't pretend to me, and I didn't have a romantic view. It spoke to me as like a real job. It was like, wait, guys actually do this? Why would you want to do anything else? It didn't make, so that was very focused on that. Blockbuster, VHS tapes, that whole thing, trying to get as much information, library books, and that got shelved though, right? As you go into adolescence and girls and sports, and college was on deck for me. My my grandfather was a captain in the Navy, Naval Academy graduate. College was just an extension. It was a mandatory thing. So that was put on the back burner even further. Yeah, I'm going to be a Navy SEAL, but later. I had school to do. It wasn't even an option yet. And during this whole formative period, I was stacking bad habits. I was smoking weed, doing drugs, playing sports, being that big man on campus, and going into college, getting car accidents, arrests in college. And I had stacked up so much crap that by the time I graduated from college, I realized, or I was told by some recruiters, I had to go to jail to clear up my probationary sentence, all this stuff. So a judge gave me, so I went and did 4 months in jail up in Sanford Bay area, graduated from college, right into jail. And there, I was actually in a good mood. It was all right. I was clearing up 23 lockdown facilities. So no sunlight for 4 months. No, it was a jail. So it's no yard time or anything like that. And training, getting focused, coming out of jail. I tell one of the COs that I'm going to be a Navy SEAL. He laughs at me, and rightfully so. Coming out though, I started talking to recruiters, and they said, no dice. You have too many tattoos, too much of criminal background, too much of this, too much of, it was just too much all over the place in every direction that wasn't good. So this is when the French Foreign Legion came on my radar. This is when I was depressed, living at my mom's house, 23 years old, riding a bike, loser, and this wasn't a long period. This was about 2 months, right? I get out of jail and I'm like trying to figure this stuff out. I had consumed that pressure of I need to get moving quick, or I'm going to be that guy living in his hometown and that guy.
Yeah.
So, but I realized the French Foreign Legion might be an option, but I had student loans and kind of life stuff that I couldn't just leave. So, and I really wanted to be a Navy SEAL. That was what's in my heart. So, and I didn't go directly to the Navy though. You notice I had gone to the Marines, the Army, and all this because I was terrified. I was fearful that I was going to fail SEAL training and end up on a boat in the Navy. So I didn't go. And growing up in San Diego, California, I knew a lot of guys that went through SEAL training, all American wrestlers. Nobody ever made it. Not one person. They're all scraping barnacles in the Navy. So I kind of realized it was my last option. I didn't have any choice. So it forced me into the Navy and I just brought in my charges. They said they could work with it. They were trying to get SEALs in at this time. It was 2009 to give you guys a timeline. And I was 23 years old, 2009, beginning of 2009. And they said they could work with it, but I could only do 2 jobs. It was turd wrangler or Navy SEAL. And then I couldn't do anything because I had drug charges and things like that. I couldn't do anything medical. It was rarely limited. But they said, if you can pass all the physical screening tests for SEALs, you can be a SEAL, or you could go on a SEAL contract. And so that's what I did. I had to get waivers for tattoos, waivers for my criminal background, waivers for this, waivers for that. I knew I needed to get in front of active duty SEALs, retired SEALs who were working for the Naval Special Warfare recruiting program. So that's what I did. I reached out to retired commanders, active duty Navy SEALs, and started training with them, started working out with them. And I lost 40 pounds in 6 weeks. To give you a little bit of I was 230 coming out of jail. I was like 190 when I was actually 6 weeks later.
Mhm.
Throwing up every day from sprints, all that stuff. I knew I needed to get in shape. And so that's what I was doing. I was eating clean. It wasn't bad. It was like seriously just eating really healthy and training extremely hard. 3-4 hours a day, long runs, sprints. It was the hardest I'd ever worked in my life. And I wasn't doing it all myself, mind you. I needed that external push and guidance. It's really difficult for me to push myself by myself running that hard, right? That's that positive peer pressure. I needed it. And so that's why I knew I needed to get around in a group to train. And it helped me. Now I get a SEAL contract. What do you know? It took me 9 months, racked and stacked. That was very difficult. They're giving out 2 a month in San Diego. And I was good enough to get a SEAL contract called a SEAL Challenge contract. You sign it, and now you ship out to Navy boot camp with a special operations contract to try. So you go into a Naval Special Warfare boot camp division. You go into, then if you finish that, you go to Base Gun and Water Demolition preparatory school in Great Lakes, Illinois. And then if they siphon screen you through that, then you go to Base Gun and Water Demolition SEAL selection, the hard part in Coronado. I did all that, class 284, went through SQT class 284, and then ended up at SEAL Team 7. So that's kind of the basic lead into the SEAL teams. And some of the highlights there, a lot of arrests, kicked out of the SEAL team 7 years later after multiple arrests, and end up working in the civilian world for 2 years, stacking bad habits. Now I'm doing fentanyl every day. Now I'm doing Adderall, Xanax, smoking weed, and still being successful. That was the problem, is I could touch success. I was a CEO of a company, raising millions of dollars in a high rise, working for a venture capitalist, crushing it. So I could lie to myself and say, hey, I'm doing all this. Obviously what I'm doing is right, but you can't bend reality and do those things for that long before I crashed and burned. Literally, I fell on my face from the too many opioids and smashed my whole face open. And that was like the last of it, right? So then 3 months later, I'm homeless, living in my truck on the east side, Big Island in Hawaii, suicidal with a sawed-off shotgun on my lap, going, what happened to my life, right? This is 2 years to the day almost from the time I got kicked out of the SEAL teams. And that's when I decided to make a change. When I was living in the jungle, suicidal, that I was having a pity party. I joined and then 8 days later, I was in France and I joined the French Foreign Legion.
Amazing. Yeah, it's a really wild ride of a story. There was something that you had said, something that we were talking about, you and trying to get our mind around where all the self-destructive behavior comes from, especially when you were younger. And something you had said was that you felt that it came from a lack of self-esteem. And that really struck us, because on the one hand, you're charismatic, good looking, athletic, smart, you had friends and girlfriends. Where did the low self-esteem come from, do you think?
I would say not self-esteem, self-worth. Slightly different.
Mm-hmm.
My confidence is always high. I've never had like low confidence, right? But there was a lack of me being okay just with myself. Like if I can I'll try to unpack this, right? Because self-esteem and self-worth, right? They can be potentially synonymous, but I like to differentiate them a little bit, because I've always had confidence in my ability, right? My ability, my charisma. I always have had confidence in that capacity, but I was reaching for validation externally, right? I was all my validation was external, what I had achieved, what I had done, when I wasn't taking the small daily steps to build the self-worth of, I always do what I say I'm going to do, right? When I say I'm going to get up at 3 a.m, I get up at 3 a.m. When I say I'm going to eat tight all day, I eat tight all day. When I say I do that, it was that. I never had that level of being disciplined enough in my day and setting those wickets to where I actually could build that self-worth. I didn't. That's what I would say is somewhat the difference is and what I ended up building a system for, and now I'm where I don't have bad days anymore. I can't even remember the last time I was in a bad mood or had a bad day. It's because my self-worth is so massive, because I do everything I say I'm going to do, and I'm reliable to myself first, and then now I'm reliable to everybody else. So it's a little bit different, I would say, and that's when the self-sabotage stopped. That's when that stopped, is once I started doing this, because I was good with myself. It wasn't what the title or what I had that was making me validate.
From the inside out.
Yeah, it was from the inside out.
Yeah, it's interesting. We spoke with Tom Shea, who was a Navy SEAL as well, and he has this book where he talks about the importance of keeping a promise to yourself and how you build that in. And it's basically, I mean, I think that's what you're getting at, right? Is
the cornerstone. It's the absolute cornerstone, and what I run into with guys in my coaching programs and things, this prolific lack of self-worth. And because people they don't listen to themselves.
Yeah.
Bottom line, they don't listen to themselves. And so how can you have positive self-talk and feel good about yourself when you don't even listen to yourself?
Yeah.
It's
When did,
insanity.
when did you become aware of that distinction between self-esteem and self-worth? Was that something that was always apparent to you, or is this
Oh,
something
no,
once
it's
you
very
realized?
recent.
Okay.
Very recent. That was maybe on this call. Serious. The development of realization of principles,
Yep.
it's this
Right.
constant evolution of being able to extract the information. And,
Yeah.
I don't even know if I've really differentiated it on any other time than here.
Well, and
But you brought it up.
there's a lot of times where we know things intuitively, but we don't always know how to articulate it until
Yes.
later, right? It's something.
Oh,
It's
100%.
visceral. Yeah.
Yes. And
Is
you
it-
just asked a really good question and said, why is it? And the self-sabotage was because of a lack of just self-worth and not building into those systems of keeping promises to yourself.
Yeah. And it seems like ironically, by being so successful with sports, with friends, etc., it allows you to validate yourself from an external.
Yes.
And
100%.
Yeah. Yeah.
Put the cart before the horse,
Right.
right? You put that cart before the horse and you haven't built in that intake. You're not integral. You haven't become one whole piece yet.
Right.
So you're fractured up at the top and it falls down and crashes.
So those of us that were lucky enough to not be talented or good at sports, we got to build that internal resilience.
But you built internal resilience. I'll tell you what, I tried to be a doctor at some point in my life, and I
heard you
realized
say that. Yeah.
aptitude's a real thing, man. Aptitude is a real thing. I hit that organic chemistry, and that was, and I realized this was not my wheelhouse, and I was competing for, C's, and that wasn't going to cut it to get into medical school. So I have a whole respect for you guys because there's a ton of resiliency in having to keep promises to yourself through many, many years and long nights and things of doing stuff that you don't want to do for some goal that's way down the road that, everyone's out doing this and you're here doing this. Is this even going to pay off? Is this going to work? So I have a whole level of respect for you guys.
No, thanks. Friends, we hope you're finding value in the content. If you're enjoying what you're watching, please consider hitting the like button, help us with our YouTube algorithm, consider subscribing to the channel, and turn on the notification button to stay up to date with everything going on in the channel.
Good.
I was just gonna say, is there something like for those that are watching that maybe are going through something similar to what you were going through when you were a younger person? Is there something that someone could have said to you or that you could, that might have gotten you on a less self-destructive path at that time? Or do you think it's something that unfortunately you just have to kind of bear the scars and learn it?
This is a very interesting topic because I think I could have, if the right person came in at the right time and really sat me down and looked at me and was like, listen, bro, but it would have had to have been somebody I respected.
Yeah.
Somebody I admired and wanted to be like, which I didn't see a lot of. I didn't have that in my life in terms of men, guys that I looked up. I wanted a guy that was blasted in tattoos, mercenary, rich, and a great successful life, which is almost impossible to find. And so that's what would have spoke to me. And that's what I decided to turn myself into. Because I knew what I would have needed. You have to turn yourself into the man you admire. You have to turn yourself into a man you admire. That's your job. That's our job here. Because then that's the only way we're actually manifest that divine design.
Yeah. I hate to.
We have that place.
It sounds like this is also a great example of, I know you had a tumultuous, like a very loving, it sounds like, family life growing up, but also very tumultuous, especially with your father. It seems like maybe that's also, if you perhaps with a either a father figure or I mean, like that's more in the home, or sometimes people find like a boxing coach or a football coach, and that can also fill that role, but it's hard if that's not there.
It was the male figure in the home is paramount.
Yeah.
There's just that stable figure. The stability would have helped. I didn't really have that safe, stable environment. I did with my mom, but there was financial concerns. There was that stress. There was, you know, a woman, it's difficult to raise a man, especially, you know, when they're kind of pushing. I just did what I wanted. I worked really early, so I had money. I was dealing, you know, it was, more structure, more discipline. I would say guys like me are like pit bulls. Pit bulls are dangerous animals if they're left to their own devices. But if you discipline and are strict with a firm hand, they're actually much happier in a disciplined state. And so that's how I would have gotten a lot less trouble if it was just a little more structured. But I don't like putting that on other people because I was definitely making my own choices.
Yeah.
You know, and I was a tough customer in terms of listening to people and not having to learn the hard way. And that wise person that learns from other people's mistakes is the rare one.
Yeah.
Right. It's not the rare entity.
Well, wisdom, don't remember who said that, but wisdom is precious because it's so costly, right? I mean,
oh man, that's deep. Yeah. Who said that? That's good. I like that.
Just claim it for yourself.
No, I'm not going.
Yeah, that's good, man.
But it's
Seneca's like, wait.
no,
Hey, man.
somebody wiser for sure, and then who's put in the price. But imparting it is definitely the difficult part.
Yeah, I like
but
that.
It seems like your story really doesn't just speak to the pit bulls, right? I mean, it speaks to the other person on the spectrum. On the other side of that spectrum, people that you sometimes say that, you know, that person that sitting on the sofa and sleeping in and not having a self-destructive, aggressive behavior, but destroying their life passively.
That's an interesting. You're very right. We all suffer in the same ways, so the answers are the same. That's what I would like to say is discipline's is the answer to everything. It truly is. Discipline and a purpose-driven life. Right? Those are the answers that fix everything. Now, how does that discipline manifest itself and translate, and how is it applied? That changes a little bit, but not much. And you're right. It applies to everybody because you don't have to be at that high frequency of, you know, doing, you know, high-speed car chases and, you know, this and that. You could be totally destroying your life and being addicted by sitting on the couch and being procrastinating or eating potato chips. And, you know, there's that frequency also. So you're right. It applies to everybody that learned wisdom through mistakes. You don't have to be making the same mistakes, but that lack of inner peace and that lack of clarity is because of not living in alignment. You know, that unaligned living and not living how we're supposed to be. That's what causes those anxious thoughts and those negative self-sabotaging behaviors.
I think for some people, the challenge is to find what they're trying to align to, right? Like, you know, to be able to have that purpose and be able to identify for yourself. You're lucky when you, and I've heard this from a lot of team guys, I feel like, and also we talked to an astronaut yesterday, it was the same thing, that they knew early on what they wanted to do, and it really gave them a North Star to follow. What would you say to someone that doesn't have that necessarily? How should they go about finding that for themselves?
It's a good question, and it's something I've toyed with a little bit. The path will illuminate as you walk it, right? And I will say that
that's a good one too. That can be Seneca.
It illuminates as you walk it. You don't have to see the end state, end goal when you start walking it. So that's kind of what I go into with guys when I start guiding them down this, showing them this path is you don't need to know where you're going, but you need to start walking. Right? And you need to start walking in the correct bearing. We'll tighten the bearing, but you need to take a course direction. It'll be rough, and then we're going to start tightening it down. So you have got to start waking up early, first of all. I'll break it down real simple with people. Men, woman, child, you've got to start waking up earlier than you want to. That's number one, because then you start your day with a win. You said you were going to get up, you got up. It's a sign of gratitude to be up early, awake, alive, trying to be your best self, right? That first, I'm up, And then you roll into some positive things. You go into some stretching or some not necessarily red dot, cold plunge, meditative, but centered thought without looking at your phone, without this trying. You don't need to be knowing what you're aligned to. What you're aligning to is higher consciousness. That's what you're aligning to. You're not aligned to some, oh, I want this job or that job. You're aligning to a universal principles. That's what people need to start understanding. If they don't understand universal laws, they're lost anyway. You're never going to align to anything if you don't believe in the universe. Universal laws exist whether you believe in them or not. So you better align to them, right? So
can you describe those, the universal laws?
12 universal laws, right? Law of vibration, law of attraction, law of all those universal laws are real. And if people don't understand them, you're never going to be aligned. You're never going to experience inner clarity, inner peace if you don't understand universal principles.
Yeah.
It's karma. It's visualization for, it's all that stuff that's how you start to become aligned.
It's a great point. It's something that you see it a lot with people as they graduate college and young professionals generally, or just young people generally, where they sort of paralysis by analysis, where they don't know what their passion is. So they just don't do anything.
Yeah.
And you really, for most people, you can't find your passion until you start doing something because you don't know enough. Right. So you sort of have to start
100%.
doing stuff, and then you'll see what you gravitate towards and what resonates to your frequency, and you develop it. I think it's very fortunate if you get thunderstruck like you did. And like some people do. But if you don't, then just to start putting one foot in front of the other in a positive way, aligned with yourself.
Well, I'll even kind of flip it on you here. My passion wasn't necessarily being a Navy SEAL. My passion is this. This is my purpose. Coaching people, teaching people, showing people how to live right. That's really is my divine design. That is my purpose, right? The SEALs and the Legion and all that stuff were just wickets I needed to hit to become this man so people will actually can listen to me.
It's a great point, right? Because you never know where it's going to lead.
That's the truth. That's the thing is you got to be careful about you saying, I want to do my passion. Yeah, I found a direction to take when I was young, but that ended. So then what? Right?
Yeah.
An NFL player, if he's passionate about football, what does he do for the next 60 years when he's done? So is that your passion? No, but not necessarily. It's just what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
My passion wasn't being a SEAL. It was just what I wanted to do. I knew it's what I needed.
Well, and it can also change, right? The passion
exactly. Your passion, as you evolve, things change. And it was, I was exhilarated by it. It was, I was sure I was passionate about it, but it was just really a job I wanted to do. It was like that wasn't what spoke to my soul necessarily, because I think most passions almost always or should be centered around self-transcendence, right? It's very hard to be living in some aligned state if you're passionate about doing watercolors and nobody ever sees them, right? It's like you want to be helping people in some capacity to step out of self to actually be living in any type of fulfilled way. You have to transcend self. You can't self-actualize till the day you die.
Yeah.
You're not going to live fulfilled.
And that's great. It seems like what you're saying, correct me if I'm wrong, but in many different ways, and just from what you're saying, but also from what you've been living, is that there's no way that you can't have certainty in your next step, right? I mean, when you try to get into the teams, you can't be uncertain about that, right? You need to go full force.
Yes.
And so there has to be the certainty in the next step, even though you don't know exactly where that's going to lead you.
Yeah.
Beyond that, talking about self-actualization. And there is a saying that I was actually just trying to fact check myself to attribute, and I couldn't find who this is attributable to, but
I'm wondering what you're doing with this.
where it's I don't know exactly where I'm going, but I know exactly how to get there, and that is having the certainty in your next.
Wow, I like that.
Yeah, I like
that's
that
exactly it. That's exactly it. You're moving in a direction on a path, right? You don't know where that ends.
And you also mentioned something that I thought was really, really important and really profound. And when you said that you are either moving towards your goal or away from your goal. So
Yes.
the implication there is that there's really no coasting in life.
There's zero coasting.
So, okay, so let's get back to just one practical standpoint, because the problem is that people have various opinions and various critiques to something that's simple when you say wake up early, right? And there are two questions in this, because there are a number of proponents that are widely respected, and like yourself, like Jordan Peterson, who says make your bed. You say wake up early. So the critics say, how am I going to change my life by making my bed? How am I going to change my life just by waking up an hour early, right? So that's one part of the question. And
It's a 7-part question. So
Yeah.
no, the second
Ready
part,
for it.
the second part really is, in talking to some friends, I've had these conversations where, okay, just start this and that value of keeping the word to yourself, but people fall off that bandwagon. What do you say to them? How do they get back on? So first of all, how does waking up early translate?
Fall off the bandwagon in what capacity? What?
In capacity of, I've woken up early 3 days in a row, but then the next 2 days I slept in.
they break the promises to themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How do you coach them back to that?
Okay. So let's address the first part. You're not guaranteed anything. You're not guaranteed that it's going to work out or it's not. You have to have a little faith. That's the first part, is you're going to be better off than if you didn't. Or even maybe not for sure, but you're stacking the deck in your favor, right? That's what I always say. It's percentages. Look at successful people. All of them wake up early. Almost all of them. Look at unsuccessful people. They're sleeping in, right? So I'm gonna go the direction where more are successful. So you're stacking the deck in your favor. I go, just try it, see how you feel. Guaranteed, you sleep in till noon versus you get up at 5, you're going to feel better about yourself if you wake up at 5. Do an experiment. Don't believe me. Just try it. Everybody knows it's true. It's not like anybody, it's not some, there's nobody I've ever talked to, even right here, everybody just knows it's true. We're built that way. Rise, that samurai, rise at 4, retire at dusk. It's all the way back into antiquity. It's just facts. People can try to fight it, but it's, you're the only person that doesn't believe it. So, and then I always just turn it back to them. I go, well, what are you doing now? They're like, well, I'm sleeping. And I go, is it working?
Like Dr. Phil, how's that working for you? Right?
How's that working for you?
Yeah.
Oh, well, it's not, I'm miserable. Like, oh, why are you talking to me then? Right? If your life's so perfect, what you're doing, you can't learn what you think you already know. So obviously you know everything, but your life's miserable. My life's great. I'm telling you what I do. Do you want this or don't you? So that's like the first part is, just putting a little blast on them. And the bandwagon thing is, I always say, man, it's not perfect. It's not going to be perfect. You're going to fall off. The game, I go, it's a game. The game is getting back on the horse. And what you do is you fall off and you struggle and you get back on. You fall off, you get back on. Then you start falling off less. And then you start getting back on quicker. And then it starts going like this. And next thing you know, you don't miss. Because people ask me about discipline. I go, I'm not disciplined. They go, what do you mean? I get up at 2 a.m. every day. I've never missed. I don't miss 2 a.m. I sleep 4 hours a day, never tired, because I'm perfectly aligned. People go, how do you do that? A discipline? I go, I don't need any discipline. I jump out of bed, no alarm clock, because it's habit. You don't need discipline for habit. It's so rooted in me, I don't even need to try. That's where I go, that's where you pass a level. That's where your level gets so gnarly, where people ask me, how do you discipline to go to the gym or work out? I don't need discipline for anything I do in my day. Zero. I don't need to try. It's easy as shit. Because I do it all the time and I've done it for years. So it's like, that's where I try to tell them, that's where you need to get to. You have to do it so rooted that it's not even, you don't even think about it. It's not hard. It's easy. It's harder for me to not get up at 2.
Yeah.
I can't even do that because my body just does it. So I go, you need to push past that part, and then you're not even worried about falling off the bandwagon. It's impossible.
Yeah, I think, and people hear that, and it's like that's so far away from where so many people are. But yet, you
Yeah.
have to start somewhere. I was listening to Jordan Peterson talk, and he said that he had patients that he was trying just to get them to clean their room.
Yeah.
And they just wouldn't do it. And so he said, okay, we'll just move the cleaning products to the doors in the room, right? And then the next week, let's bring them in the room. And it's just, okay, as long as we're making
I actually remember this. I took note of that exact thing he spoke about. It was clean your drawer, clean one drawer. Actually, Jordan P. I actually applied that in my life because that's one thing is like, I had to clean out this closet or this storage unit. I'm like, it's overwhelming, right? Everybody still deals with that stuff. It's human.
On some
So
level,
eat that elephant piece by piece.
Yeah.
So to that end, like when you're talking about the difficulties of sticking to that discipline until it becomes part of who you are, right?
Mhm.
And you fall off and you slip up. So there was one book on combat by Lieutenant Colonel Dave Wilson.
Yeah.
And there's one interesting thing, and that he talks about where the terms of scared shitless or scared piss out of somebody come from, because in combat, that's what people go through, right? When they're really scared. But you don't hear about that. I know my grandfather went through World War II. I never heard of any stories like that.
Yeah.
Because it's hard to hear something like that. No one wants to talk about that.
Yeah.
So my question to you, you've Navy SEALs, the French Foreign Legion. How important is it as a role model, right, to be as transparent as you are? And because the analogy here is that if we have these heroes that are completely flawless, it is so hard to live up to that. And then we blame ourselves and we just give up trying. It's similar to, the conversation about girls looking at models that have been airbrushed on Instagram and never being able to live up to that. So part of your transparency is a lot of your driving force. Do you find that that's an important thing for you, or is it just something that you normally do?
Did you just call him an airbrush girl model?
No.
Yeah. No, you too nice, man. Man, what I've experienced now is from the outreach that I've gotten is, my emails and DMs and clients I have to turn people away. I can't manage it all. Is people want to be their authentic selves. They're craving to be their authentic self. And so when they see somebody being so transparent, their authentic self, they feel like they can be themselves and they can actually learn, right? And you see all these guys and this is no shade. You got guys like, Jocko and those guys who are like this perfect being, right? It's like they're like unbreakable. And I respect it. I look up to it, but it's hard for me to identify with it, because I can't understand that just level of not messing up ever for years, and being that locked on. I aspire to be like that. And I'm impressed by men like Jocko, big time, tons of respect for him, is being that aware and locked on and self-aware from a very young age, right? I'm impressed by that. And that's why but it's hard for the masses and it's hard for people to be like, because it seems detached. It doesn't seem normal. And so to answer your question specifically, Doc, I found it to be extremely important. And it's my whole MO is wild transparency. And I take the bad with the good with that, right? I take some heavies on, social media, going online and saying all this stuff I take the bad with the good, but I'm fine with that. I knew that going in, and so I was like, this has got to happen. And it's been it's my calling card. And so I found it to be extremely important for myself also, because I was like, if I'm going to do this, to be authentic and for it to hit, the content to hit, it has to be real, because there's so much fake bullshit out there that is just fluff. And people see it. And this is the age of raw. This is the age of organic, real. And that's when I knew is like, this is the time to actually do this and insert real stuff that people can can get and understand, and they know that you don't have to live in the shadows with it. Because here's the point. Here's the real reason. If you don't know where you're at, you're going to die in the woods, right? If you can't get honest about where you're at, you can't fix anything. And so all these people are trying to make these changes in their life when they haven't been honest just about what they're actually doing. You know, they're acting out sexually by them, by telling nobody and doing drugs and all these things. That's all. You're not going to ever heal if you don't expose that wound to the sun and dry it out.
Yeah.
That's what you have to do to actually heal. Once you do that, it's easy to fix stuff when you're like, hey, this is me. This is what I'm doing. I go, okay, well, is it out of your system now? It's not a secret anymore. Takes a lot of power away from it.
Yeah, talking about things takes so much power away from them. I was going to say before, the fact that you're so open about all of these things, I think there's going to be a lot of young people that, it's hard because you're not one-on-one with all of those, but they can look to you as that role model that maybe they're missing in their life and draw some inspiration, and hopefully put them on a better path.
I hope so, man. If it helps one person, it's good, and then a lot of people reach out and they're like, hey, I've been doing this and that. I go, well, it doesn't shock me. Are you good? Are you done doing it? It's like, let's fix it then, and it's so fixable with really easy things, but people complicate it and they make their life overcomplicate their lives with just all these vices and these negative things why are you doing that? Like, what is that actually?
Although simple doesn't always mean easy.
Yeah. Simple's almost never means easy. Right. And people keep looking for happiness in the same place they keep losing it. That's what I always try to hit with people. I go,
I like that.
You're out at the bar drinking every night, and then because this was me, out partying in the bars and doing that, and then the next day miserable for some decisions you made, and then you do it again. Why?
Yeah.
Why? What? At some point you go, why am I doing this to myself? Now that's where the self-love. I'm sure we'll get into this later as the conversation progresses, but that's where the self-love goes. Where if I really love myself, why am I putting myself in these situations where I keep hating myself?
Yeah. That was a question I wanted to ask before was, on the one hand, when you're getting ready for buds and doing all of the preparation and then in the SEAL training, on the one hand, you have to be so mentally locked in and so mentally tough, right? A lot of people say it's more mental than physical, even going through the buds and everything.
Yeah.
So on the one hand, you're completely there, and on the other hand, even during that whole process, you're still going out. And I think at one point you were in briefly in jail during that.
Yeah.
How do you sort of reconcile that dichotomy that on the one hand so locked in, on the other hand so not?
That comes back to that self-worth piece. That comes back to that self-worth. I was locked on, but I still wasn't daily disciplined.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Locked on. I was kind of disciplined-ish, which is not disciplined. And so I was going to the gym, looked good, this and stuff. I was Navy SEAL, waking up early. I would still wake up early, but not all the time. And, I was kind of here. And so you have these, your structure is loose. It's not tightened down. And I needed, at this level of frequency that I operate at, I need to be really, really tight, or else things get, and also you lose your wits about you when you just drink too much. Right. And so there's a piece that's just also lack of maturity and irresponsible.
Yeah.
There's a piece that's just straight irresponsibility, because I wasn't going out and partying to do stuff. I was staying locked on. But if I did go out, I would drink irresponsibly and not be able to make good decisions. Yeah. So it's like, so pulling those vices away, or I should say, never putting yourself into a situation where you lose your wit.
Yeah.
Where you can't make a good decision. That's going to make your whole situation a lot better also, is not putting yourself in or not diving into that. And it's hard to do. You got to understand, people understand themselves as, if you can't drink responsibly, maybe you shouldn't drink. It's like that piece, because you can be locked on as one, but once you're a drunk mess, all that's out the window. You're a completely different person.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
So let's not put it off until later in the conversation. Let's dive into self-love now, because self-love has been thrown around and misunderstood by so many
Yeah.
people. I mean, people say self-love. So of course, self-love. Don't I deserve a drink? I mean, I've had a hard day. I want to give me some pleasure. So
Mhm.
how do you define self-love, and how would you explain self-love and differentiate it from that?
Self-love is the opposite of pleasure.
Hmm.
Self-love, I associate pleasure with regression. Pleasure is regression. So once you start attaching pleasure with regression, things start clearing up, because actually loving yourself is it's like a child, or we're a child, Well, how do you love a child? By being disciplined, not by
Hmm.
feeding him cake all day, right? And
Yeah.
so we're the same way. So discipline is self-love. Diving into discomfort for the purpose of evolution is self-love. Self-love is loving yourself, that evolved version of you tomorrow, not engaging in immediate pleasure now, right? There's a rest is self-love, right? Because I would say, if you love yourself, give yourself some positive rest. Get a massage, do something high vibrational where you're actually becoming a better person tomorrow, not something that's destroying you tomorrow. That's not self-love.
That's a really good point. I mean, it's like it's something we said in medical school all the time, is that fun doesn't mean happy.
Fun does not mean happy. It often
You
does
know,
not.
you have to kind of like, it was like a mantra, so
I
that
like that. Fun does not mean happy. That's really good. Wow, that's really good.
Yeah.
I'm gonna cite the source. I'm gonna use that. Man. I like that. Well, it's no, because it makes so much sense. Fun
Yeah.
does not mean happy, and you can be having fun, and
Be
pretty
miserable.
soon you're not going to be very happy.
Yeah.
It's like there's absolutely that, and oftentimes that's the case.
Yeah. A lot of times fun is a distraction too, right? It's a hedonistic, temporary,
It's
get yourself
this.
out of yourself.
And here's another piece. And you were talking kind of, oh, I deserve a drink. I've been working hard, or I deserve it. It's if you're escaping from your life in any type of form of escapism, people do it with food, people do it with video games, people do it with whatever, then escapism's not good. Identify what's escapism and what's culturally enriching,
Mm.
right? And I'll give you a great example. People ask me if I'm stone sober. I say no. They say alcohol touches my lips. They go, when? I said, if my mom wants to go to a winery, right?
Yep.
And I'm
Right.
being serious. Like,
Yeah.
that's something that's culturally enriching. I said, my mom wants to, it's a, you sip a glass of wine. I'm not going to turn and burn because I had you gotta, it's culturally enriching. But if it's habitual escapism,
Yeah.
now you have to identify what is actually happening, right? If it's culturally enriching, if you're having a drink, an eggnog at Christmas with your family, or if you're drinking vodka every night at your house by yourself, there's a big difference there. And some will say I'm not wrong. Maybe I'm wrong about that in the future. Maybe, being completely straight edge is more correct. I don't know. Maybe I'll evolve into that. But for me, that's it's been so clear of what's different, what causes me shame and regret and what doesn't.
Yeah.
What causes me problems in my life and what doesn't. I just look at the results.
Yeah. Such a great point to just be aware of why you're doing what you're doing.
Yes.
And that informs sort of, if you're being honest with yourself, if you're aligned with yourself, then you won't lie to yourself.
Yeah.
Sometimes that self-awareness sometimes is tough, and I really like your point of how would you love a child, and not taking it into this spiritual new agey world of protect your inner child, but really in a very, very practical way. If you were to treat yourself as a child, what would you tell yourself to do? And if you can just
Yeah.
back yourself away, I think it becomes very clear.
It's
Right.
so simple when you put it like that, because it's true. It's
Yeah,
absolutely
absolutely.
true. You're like, hey, you're going in the fridge and you have an option of what you're going to eat, and you go, you want the cake or should you have the piece of fruit? What are you going to tell your child to eat?
Yeah.
Why do we not tell ourselves that? It's strange because we have the option and you just want to do what you got to do. No, love yourself like you would discipline, be strict with yourself because it's better for you.
Yeah.
That's self-love.
Yeah.
That's because it's better for you in the long run.
There's something else I keep wanting to bring it up because we keep talking about the self, and that's really important. And it's also important to not get so navel gazing that it's all like there's something that you had said, which resonated a lot when you were in Hawaii with a sawed-off shotgun,
Yeah.
thinking of taking your own life. And it sounded like what really brought you out of that was being able to turn the attention away from the self and onto your mom and your sister, and
Yes.
to realize, hey, I'm being so selfish here, and I'm just thinking of myself. And I
Yeah.
think, in general, the more that our focus is on others and being of service to others, it's actually a selfish thing to do, because it's, in the end, we're going to be better for it if we can
Yes.
do that. That seems to be an important part of sort of aligning yourself. Like, if you just align yourself to your own hedonistic desires, you're going to crash and burn, right? That's not really aligned. That's really just giving yourself an out to do what's fun.
The whole focus of developing self should be for the purpose of helping others.
Yeah.
Right? That whole focus of developing self, and that self-awareness also, Doc, you were just speaking of that being a self-aware of why you're doing certain things, of who you are. And that takes time, and it takes quiet time. That's what's I see as a prolific problem, is people have so many distractions. They don't take time to think about themselves. Right. And now this is kind of we're going to go back full circle here. You have got to really examine self for a long period of time before you can help anybody else correctly.
That's a
You
great
have
point.
got to, and that's why, guys, if you've noticed, there's guys who are in the content space who went to prison for a long time, who had that time to self-reflect and used it correctly. That's what the Legion gave me. And it's the reason why I went in, is I knew I would have time and have everything stripped away from me in a very Spartan way, where I could think about, I was doing Adderall and running 1,000 miles an hour and SEAL and deploying and feeding my ego with girls and all this stuff, money. And I never sat down and actually thought about what the heck, who I was, and what I was actually thinking, or dive into some of these philosophical principles, dive into some stoicism, dive into all these things that allow you to understand who you are. And if you don't understand who you are, you don't understand what you want. You don't understand why you're doing the things you're doing. And that's why you see this problem out in the world, is people are just reactive and doing stuff, and they don't even know why. As you dive into this online space and stuff, kind of putting yourself out like I am, kind of a character, you get a lot of negativity, and you see the evil in the world. Make no mistake, there's evil in the world, and you see it. It's so transparent for people like me why people are throwing this negativity. But the people doing it are so blinded by why. They don't even know why they're doing it, because they lack self-awareness.
Yeah.
And so it takes time, a lot of time, to become self-aware. And then you can actually help people, because you know who you are, you know what you're all about, you know what your kind of passions are, your general virtue. It's all kind of one and the same, that it's rooted from the inside out.
Something that you said in one of your videos is that success is subtractive. Is that what you're talking about right there?
Success is subtractive. It's a layered thing. That I'm the subtraction sensei for people, because people want to add stuff. They're like, oh, my life's not working out well, so I'm going to add this program. I'm going to buy this thing, make me feel better. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. I'm going to add in some more medication. I'm going to add stuff. That's going to make me better, when people should start subtracting stuff. And I mean it in a very practical sense, first of all. And then it kind of goes into the deeper of subtraction. Is I'd start with the actual what they're doing in the day. I go, man, we got to strip this down. First of all this time you're doing it, take it away. All your subscriptions, take them away. Take it away. See your closet, get rid of all your clothes. Put black and gray in there. Get rid of, I just strip your life down to where it's just you mostly, and you're just start building those daily habits. Clean out the whole fridge, clean out just everything, strip it down, and start doing less things, and make sure the things you're doing are more efficient and better, right? So you start taking stuff out of your day and start really simplifying your life. So that simplification process is subtractive generally. Simplicity is the highest form of sophistication. You see a sophisticated thing, it's sleek, streamlined, not clutter. You see something sophisticated, what is like contemporary design, right? What is it? Sleek, clean, sophisticated. Why? Because it's simple. That's how people need to view their lives. And that's why I always try to, everything should be deliberate. Everything. The socks you put on, everything. You don't just have some sock drawer packed with a bunch. Clean it out. Put exactly only the sock you like in there. Like, it goes down to the very, you shouldn't have a drawer in your house that everything's not in order, right? Because your subconscious mind knows all these things.
I can hear my wife saying, "You see, that's what I've been telling you all along."
It's cleaning out the clutter of your life. And I don't know if I hit your question exactly on the subtractive piece, but there's also mental subtraction that needs to start happening. There's unlearning that needs to start happening. That to allow you to become successful. That's what I had to do. I had to unlearn and subtract things that I had thought was me. What I thought I centered my whole identity around. I had to start subtracting all that stuff to allow for some new information in, right? It's like people think they're this whole person and they know, man, you should probably take an exam. Maybe you don't know everything, maybe there's some different ideas that can help you. And so it's subtractive to get you to that next step.
Yeah. What kinds of things did you have to subtract mentally from yourself to get there?
What the real man was, right? That was the big piece, is I wanted to be the fun guy, the guy that could party for 3 days and then still go crush work and be successful, and was doing it. And so I was like, I thought that was the cool guy.
Mm-hmm.
When the cool guy, man, is the locked on dude that's reliable. That's what I had to unlearn, is that what is a real man? What is a tough guy? Is a tough guy like somebody who can never talk about his feelings? No. Is a tough guy somebody that, that can't be soft with people? No. And so that's kind of how I started to understand that honesty's the real man, the transparent man that can live transparent because what he's doing is right. That behind closed doors is right. That not just because nobody knows, it's like not a big deal. It's a huge deal. The universe knows, God knows, higher consciousness knows, Allah knows, whatever you want to call it. Buddha knows, man. They know. It knows. Energy knows. It can't be lied. So then once I started living by universal principles, my life changed. Because I don't care about the laws of man. It doesn't matter to me. I only operate off universal principles. And once I started doing that, everything cleared up. Everything.
Go ahead. How important is visualization? Like, it sounds to me a little of what you're saying also is that you had to get rid of those previous preconceptions about what you had decided was, your ultimate sort of person to become. But then you replace that with something which you say, well, actually, this is what I think, a man should be, and this is what I want to aspire to. How important is it for people to create that for themselves, their own vision of that?
On my program that I teach guys, day one is visualization training. Day one, we start, I don't know if you can do it without it. What does Yogi Berra say? If you don't know where you're going, you're probably going to end up somewhere else. Phenomenal quote. Phenomenal. Because it goes right into line with my deliberate life. How are you deliberate about what you're doing if you don't know what you're doing? What for, right? So what I do is I actually do a full exercise. I make people write down their 10.0 self. Who is that guy? Doesn't need to be long. Better if it's short. What does he look like? What does he act like? What is his life like? What is the house like? What is his character like? And then read it every day. Now, I have a full, in my morning process that I teach people that I do every day, part of it is getting centered. And I'm talking, it's quick, 45 minutes max, but it's at like 3 and 4 in the morning during that hour of the tiger that 3:30 where it's that time of the gods, where people are more aligned with their purpose, it's quiet and you're not getting pulled in different directions, is you go into your centering, 15 minutes, get some coffee in you, black coffee, some caffeine, just kind of wake up. Then you go into some raising your vibration for 10 minutes, 15. And I'm talking simple, some stretching, some push-ups, just something to raise it a little bit, not a crazy workout, nothing like that. But then you go into visualization for 15 minutes, deliberate time allocated for daydreaming. That's what it is, for visualizing specific details of we spend so much of our life thinking about what we don't want, projecting problems that we don't want, magnifying things we don't want. This is the time you allocate just for the things you do want. How do you look, how your family is, the health, the house, the wealth, all of it. And you do it every day, again and again and again and again and again. I've never visualized something I didn't make happen. Never in my life. Not ever. It's so powerful. It's absolutely foundational to actually achieving stuff. You can fall into some stuff, but is it exactly what you wanted?
And the visualization, I'm guessing that you're not thinking of it as you put it out into the world and then it materializes without you, basically, but that it gives you a
No.
roadmap, right? It gives you a North Star.
Well, I'm not the manifest guy.
Yeah.
I'm the visualize and then make it happen guy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? Because it gives you a framework.
Yeah.
If it gives you that idea, okay, how do I now, what steps do I need to take today to do that, to get me closer to that? That's how I view it. It's okay, it's there. Now, okay, what do I got to do today? Do I got to send this email? I got to do this. I got to do that. It's like the application of getting there. It's not, I'm just going to do it and then go sit on the couch. But there's people like that. I don't believe in that stuff at all, because that law, that universal law number 5, number 4, law of attraction, number 4, and law of inspired action, kind of 4 and 5, are what you're visualizing. You have to actually believe is attainable. If you're sitting on the couch, in your heart it's not attainable because you're not doing those things. That self-worth's not there. If you visualize it and then you're working towards it and trying, your mind, your whatever it is, the ego, the subconscious, whatever it is like, okay, well, this is actually possible because you're doing the things that are required to get there.
Do you encourage people to try to pick, when they're visualizing their 10.0 self, do you try to make sure they don't, like, for example, like, do they try and make sure they don't pick something so unrealistic that it's absurd?
I never give parameters. Never give parameters on people. And because I think it's important, because who am I to say what's possible for them?
Right.
Right. That's one thing I have learned is I don't know someone's level of result. And I'll give you a great example. I have a truck driver on my roster. He came to me, young kid, 26, truck driver, tried to get in the Marines years ago, had a felony, couldn't do it. So he just started driving trucks and just kind of got away from society as his dog. And he's like, man, I don't have any friends, whatever. 400 pounds. 400 pounds. He came to me, $399. He came to me, he goes, man, I am fed up with who I am and I want to change. Where do I send the money? That's what he said to me. And I said, okay. I said, you're already correct. You're going to do well. If I would have given this guy parameters of how much weight, and I gave him his macros, I told him, hey, we got to start doing some simple movements. Like I'm talking walking around while you're pumping your truck. Simple, but eating tight. And man, this guy got locked on. And I could have said, oh, I want you to lose this much weight, to visualize how much the guy's down 70 pounds in 5 weeks.
That's awesome.
70.
That's really cool.
330. He sends me the scale. 330 from 399 in 5.5 weeks. And I go, and I'm like, wow, because I saw he locked on a capacity that I never think was possible, especially coming from that level of lack of discipline to disciplined. I mean, his macros are like, he's weighing it like better than the guys I have from MIT, way more locked on. And I'm like, wow, I don't know someone, and I saw this in SEAL training too. I don't know someone's level of resolve. So I don't ever say what's possible, because somebody might be like, I'm going to become president of the United States. And I'm like, maybe, serious. Because who the fuck knows? People are.
Right,
If
But
they
if
get
I
on
said to
it,
you, I'm going to be a center for the Knicks, I'm determined. You'd be
maybe
like,
you got a crazy jump shot, man. I don't know. You know,
Wait,
maybe you're Stephen Kerr up in here. Maybe you're draining threes. Serious. That's why I don't know. Yeah, I'm like maybe who knows? Maybe you're the
Yeah.
professor, you know, like, and so I don't know, right? And that obviously most of the time people are reasonable,
Sure.
right? And people are reasonable. If they're going into something like this, they're generally, especially if they're spending money on it, they're usually not going to be, you know, so far gone. And if they are, they're going to learn pretty quick that it's just not possible, you know. And so I think generally I go off of the percentages. People are generally pretty reasonable.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, it's really listen, I it's very impressive the things that you come up with. And you spoke earlier about aptitude, right? And you're coming up with a lot of this principles and concepts that are really based in reality, things that
Yeah.
you've done, things that you see people do. And there is this book by Benjamin Hardy, Being Your Future Self Now. He's a psychologist, researcher,
I like
so on and
that.
so forth. And he says one thing that you basically said without saying the actual words. And he says, you're better off failing as your future self than succeeding as your current self.
Whoa, man, that's heavy. Whoa, who was that again?
Benjamin Hardy. And
Hardy, man, that's really, really good. I like that.
yeah, but you said it. You basically this is
Yeah,
is
but
the
he
thing.
articulated it very succinctly. That's very, very good.
And that's really impressive that you're
living it.
living it, but you're also
Yeah.
synthesizing this, and you're making it accessible to others.
Yeah.
There's can I just do a quick pivot?
The camel?
No,
okay.
Just back to
Yeah.
self-awareness. And
Ah.
this is
Yep.
something that I was curious about, because this is something that we talked about briefly, that we picked up in one of your conversations. So first, when you went into the teams and then the Foreign Legion, and were serving others a part of this drive, or was ego and achievement more of it? And there's a reason I'm asking, because
No,
because of,
serving others was not part of it at all. Zero. People talk about, hey, I went in to serve my country. Not me. I went in to do something badass to be looked at as a badass motherfucker. That's seriously 1000% it. I did not go in for some greater good to try to solve terrorism or serve my country even. I didn't care. I just was like, what's the most badass job available? I'm going to do that because I want to be badass. That's
and
it.
is that why you were drawn in the French Foreign Legion? You chose the regiment that deployed the most?
Yeah. After I lost everything and I go, okay, well, what's the next most badass thing that nobody's ever done before?
Hmm.
And I'm like, okay, there's never been a Navy SEAL Legionnaire. I'm going to do that. So then I did that. And all of that, who knows why that seed was planted in my body or why that was, but it was all just to fulfill my destiny so that I can be doing this now. Because now I have a platform that people will listen to me and they'll stop and they're like, who the fuck's this guy with gold teeth and tattoos that's done all this? But then I can blast them with universal principles and they'll have to listen. That's the truth. I would believe I've been ordained by God for this purpose. Dead serious. And so all of that stuff I did, or I thought I was doing, it wasn't for me. I have no idea why I was driven to do that stuff, but it was required.
So let me contrast that with something that we picked up. And look, we may be reading too much into this, and you tell us if we're reading too much into
Get
this.
deep, man. We get deep here. That's what we do.
Well, listen, you were having this conversation. Towards the end of the conversation, this was with someone who was in real estate, and you were talking about scaling.
Yeah, Austin Hancock. Great dude. Combat veteran Marine. Great dude.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was a good conversation, and that was interesting. You get to the point where you're asking about scaling,
Oh yeah.
and it seems
Asking
like a
about what?
conversation. Scaling. How do you scale? How do you
Scaling,
expand the real estate, your
Yeah.
real estate company, if you will? And then it seems like the conversation, your next question would have been, well, then how do you expand, or how do you scale in terms of money? It was very interesting that your next question was really about how do you deal with the weight of the responsibility of
Yeah.
the new employees, right?
Mhm.
And that's kind of was what struck us as something that was in service of others. That was your
Yeah.
next question. It wasn't about how much money you're going to make or how many buildings you're going to buy or build. It was really
Yeah.
about how do you take care of your employees?
Yeah. That was a real stress because, well, first of all, I lived it a little bit because, when I run a company, so I realized that that's your decisions or good decisions and bad affect people's lives. And I messed that up one time. And so that's why I was like, the pressure of that was massive, even on a smaller scale. So then when he's talking about scaling, and then you're thinking about formal corporate structures and having single moms and stuff on your payroll.
Yeah.
What is the weight of that? And that's it. I really was curious because that's the truth. I was seriously, and I still can imagine that being for most business owners, that's probably the biggest concern, is that their decisions, bad or good, affect people's ability to eat, and that's serious responsibility, maybe the most serious. And, the scaling and this and that, the personally, the money's, I don't, that is, you have $1 billion, $1 million doesn't, what is the freedom of choice, having some ability to influence, all that stuff's important. I 100% see the importance of having wealth, but it's not the be all end all for what's making you fulfilled. We all see that, all over the place, people with tons of money who aren't happy, killing themselves. And, so, but being broke is definitely not the answer either, because there's a nice medium somewhere in the middle. And, but the responsibility of, people's mortgages, and things like that. I'm like, man, that's gotta be stressful. And he was like, yeah, it is stressful. And that, I don't know if there's really a good answer to that, but I was curious.
How do you think of that for yourself now in terms of this, you're lifting this heavy load of, being inspiring for everyone, but especially people that may be more vulnerable, that are looking for some help, and now you're reaching out your hand. And I guess I have a two-part question, if I can lean on Zinovy's strategy of two-part. How do you sort of deal with that pressure? And then also, where do you see this going? Like, if you could envision, 5 years out, where would you like to see this this evolution that you're going under?
I got a pretty good answer for you. First of all, the weight of it is sometimes I feel it. I get a lot of some seriously heavy emails,
I'm sure.
and all it does is it solidifies that I can't slip. Because if I slip, people will fall. So I can't miss, because I record all my stuff on Instagram, and I record my 2 a.m. wake ups. I record when I travel across the world, and I don't miss ever. Because the problem is people missing. People being not consistent. So if you're preaching consistency, you better be consistent. So there's that piece that I can't mess up. I can't have a bad night out anymore. I can't have and then be hungover and miss my calls and miss. I can't do it. I have got to be locked on. So there's that pressure, because people go, oh, look at this. I thought he was locked on. Now, oh, okay, screw it. I don't have to be trying my best if he's gonna, so. And maybe I'm being too self-important, but I know that it's actually just reality in some cases. And then where I see this going is where it's already kind of developing. So we're working the coaching piece now, and I have some lower ticket, mid-level items, and then some higher ticket items. I'd like to start getting into people that are a little bit more serious, which I've already started to do with people that are really in need, but it ain't cheap. That's the truth, because I want people that are committed, and I want to do year-long programs, 6-month minimums. And so that's where I've already started to evolve into, and we're starting to get into corporate coaching. So I have a partner who's like really into the health optimization. He's like, he teaches doctors courses. He is the best in the game at hair follicle samples, blood, all that stuff, and optimizing corporations from the top down. So that's our next step, is doing, the mindset stuff's important. You got guys like, they're going and coach the mindset, but mindset can be kind of hocus pocus, and so you get the ROIs on the employees when you start seeing that their health and their mindset's improved, and you get an ROI on everybody. and you start maximizing profits. And so I'm going to start getting into that. I'll still have, my content I put out for people, but I'll probably start doing less and less one-on-ones with people that are, and do more group stuff. That's going to be the progress, the progression. And I got a book coming out, and I have some other stuff coming out, and so we'll have some side fun projects doing consultations for things for movies and stuff like that. That'll be probably down the road, but that's just side fun stuff. So my whole thing is to try to get this positive message out of how to live your life in a good way, feeling good, feeling happy. Like it's not that hard. And having good values, standing by what you say, and being a good man, being a good being the example and setting the tone for your family, for the people in your life. That's kind of my whole message. And I'll put that in everything I do, right? Whether it be a book or a movie or content I put out, that's my whole message. Understanding universal principles, because this world we're in now, man, people are losing sight of the bigger picture. They're losing sight that it's not about them, that it's about the community, it's about our families. And the minute people get outside of themselves and start focusing on other people, like we talked about, the world's going to get better, and so, but we can't change anything until we change ourselves. And so that's what we've got to start with, each individual person, and then get people right.
That's a great mission. It sounds very exciting. I'm really excited to watch this whole thing evolve with you.
And it is exciting, man. I feel good about it. And it feels good to feel good about something.
Yeah.
Right. And have that, not just punching a clock and doing that. And there's risk, right? There's risk. There's no guarantees here, right? There's no guaranteed money for me. There's no guaranteed anything. And so I'm like all in, I'm all in, because it was either this or go to Ukraine for me. That's serious. No, I'm not lying. All my contacts are like, they're prepped for me to go to Ukraine and fight in Ukraine. So I was like already going to do that, or go to mercenary road down in Africa. So I have a legion in Ukraine that was asking me to come with them. And I'm like, I knew, but here was the road for me, the fork in the road. I realized me going to Ukraine, this may sound weird, but I was running from fear. I was fearful. Something I knew. And I was like, because if I went there, it would be putting off what I knew I should be doing, because I wasn't sure I could be successful at it or compete in the real world, and be able to, not mess it up again. It would be, I can do that whole combat. I can go down that road and then write a more crazy story of being and so that was like, well, maybe I'll just write a crazier story and keep going. But then I realized, at what point is it enough, man? At what point, how much street cred do you have to stack before you will have enough self-worth to actually think what you have to say is meaningful, right? And that's where I was like, I had to come to this realization that I am good right now. My habits are good. I have things to share with people. If I'm not doing it, I'm doing a disservice. It's not about me, because that would be running to serve me.
Yeah.
I realized that it's running to serve me again. And that time's done. Man, I'm also 38, right? I don't want to, at some point you're just running from, at some point you got to start your life, right? I had to start my life, man. And so I came to that kind of point too, where, man, there's just, there's things I want to do in the romantic, have kids and have a life and be able to do that stuff. And which I started out, I have a beautiful girlfriend. And life is good. And it can be good, and you don't need all this crazy stuff to be fulfilled. You could be okay living your life and being your best man, being your best self. And being the best for your family. That's the purpose. And building your communities up, building your country up, and that's how we do it.
Something that you had said in a previous video was that when everything is going really well, that's when the danger. That's when you have to really be on guard, right?
I was just thinking about that this morning, actually.
How do you guard against that now? Because now things are going really well.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, Doc. I'll tell you what, man. I was just thinking about that this morning, going, everything is going so good.
Yeah.
I was like, waiting for a piano to fall on me, man. I was serious. This is what I know it's different because I'm actually thinking about that.
Mhm.
Right. Before
Yeah.
that wasn't even on my radar. I was so ahead of my skis being able to. So now I'm like, okay, am I making any decisions that can be life altering? Right. Am I getting in a car when I've been drinking? Am I doing anything like that? That's drastic. Control all the things that actually could make some serious problems. Right. And I don't have bad habits. Also, that removes a whole major piece of,
Yeah.
I'm not doing drugs. I'm not drinking every day, so it's like that whole piece and nothing changes. Nothing changes, right? Nothing changes in what I do, what I buy, like today. First thing I do when I move to a new place here, I'm with the girl. We go gym memberships, boom, starting the day. I still get up at 2, that's not going to change ever in my life.
Yeah.
Nothing changes. As long as I keep my daily habits and processes the same, I control what I can. And, just keep it slow. Nothing should speed up or change, and keep focused is, I think, the most important piece, because you're right. Things are going good. Okay. But don't start changing a bunch of stuff because it's going good.
And having that awareness, like you said.
Yeah,
Just
and having the
it-
awareness.
Yeah.
Being aware of it, I think, helps, because like things are going good before. I wasn't thinking about, something might happen, but I also
Right.
didn't have any processes built in.
Yeah. Yeah.
You've also mentioned that universe gives you signs, sometimes small, and they grow and grow and grow.
Yeah.
And what are those? What do you look out for?
Ooh. Anything negative, right? If you're starting to get negative inputs, bad things start happening that could have been, avoided, but, just dropping the ball on things you didn't drop the ball on. Also, lack of organization. If things start becoming unmanageable in any way, start subtracting stuff and tightening back in. That's, and I think that learned skill, it gets easier and easier, right? It gets, okay, well, stuff that might have been not even viewed as unmanageable now is like, oh man, I missed an email. Like that type of, it starts getting so tight. You're like, I can't believe I missed that email. That was weird. I better start, resetting a little bit. And so that's what I would say is the inputs should get less grab. They shouldn't be like life altering, going to jail and this stuff. The inputs are, but your personal relationships, if things are, if you're seeing that you're not as emotionally in control, things like that, I think are also are inputs from the universe. Like you're getting a little bit more angry or frustrated or things like that, I think are also signs that you need to maybe take a look at what you're doing.
Yeah. It's a bit like in our world, we take care of back pain a lot. And, people often, they ignore, a little back pain here, a little there. They kind of just ignore all those signs until, you can't ignore it anymore and it blows up. And if we could have just intervened before the blow up, you could save a lot of time.
I had
and
some
hurt.
questions about you, man. I mean, you guys are spine specialists, right?
Yep.
Yeah, that's right.
I cannot imagine a more complex thing to
Nah,
specialize in.
There's
But-
nothing to it.
Yeah, right. Yeah, right. But what a fascinating thing of the actual spot, that cylinder of absolute just pinnacle of engineering, right?
Yeah.
The absolute pinnacle of
Yes.
engineering is that cylinder of
Right.
hocus pocus, really. Like seriously, it's fascinating
Yeah.
to me that, and how substantial it is in our lives and how we, it's plugged into the life source.
It's interesting.
It
It's
is the
like so
life
many,
source.
yeah, and you don't. It's like so many things you don't appreciate it until it stops working for you,
I
and
bet.
then you realize how much you took it for granted.
Yeah.
Before. Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
that
no, it's
gratitude piece. I'm sure you see people with paralyzations and things like that. And I can't imagine that, that reality. And so when people have the ability to be grateful now,
Right.
right, it's to also remember that perspective, to keep that perspective of, man, if you can move all 4 limbs, you better start moving them.
Yeah. 100%.
Absolutely.
Right. Right. It's not being pity party about, I lost my job. Man, can you eat and move? Man, you're crushing it, right? You should be grateful and go for a walk, right?
Yeah.
And it's those principles also that I think are so important that people lose sight of.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We have to let him go soon. It's
Yep.
getting, but there was a question I really wanted to ask you that we had been talking
Yeah.
about you, as we knew we were going to be talking with you. And there was something that we kept coming back to, which is that you can tell whenever you're on camera, and especially when we've seen you talk with other people, you have this captivating quality and you bring people in and people really resonate to you.
Mm.
And at first, it seemed like, well, maybe it's the story, the history, all that you've been through, your, articulate and your look and all the tattoos and everything, but it's not, it's something else that's more intangible. And we kept coming back to the word charisma.
Mm.
And so we were wondering, is that charisma something you've always had? Is it something that you've consciously cultivated? And do you think that it's something that can be taught? Is it, because I would like that. No, because
I mean, you do
that's
have
what
it,
he
Doc.
said.
You do
No,
have
but-
it, man. I think you guys, you guys definitely both have a lot of charisma.
But
100%. This conversation has flowed very well because you both have charisma and you have the ability to be aware and you ask, engage and pull back. That's charisma
Oh.
is awareness. Charisma is really awareness of what you need to give and what you need to get, right? And that's what charisma is that understanding of the exchange of energy. So as people get higher levels of understanding about how to exchange energy and get that, their emotional intelligence raises, they're going to get more charisma. So to answer your question, yes, it is teachable. Some start with just more talent, right? I was 100% very charismatic, young, very young. And I actually tried to tone it down. Once I started, because I was like, I can, people always knew I could talk and make people, I have always had that. And so I would actually try to tone it down because I thought that wasn't the tough guy. When I realized I'm just going to embrace it and be who I am, especially on camera, man, it was blow up because I'm just myself. That's why it comes across as sincere. I've been like this forever. But I've also been, I would say, emotionally somewhat intelligent. I understand how to read people and communicate. And my father's that way too. He understands how to communicate, when to shut up, when to talk, when to ask questions. And so the awareness piece, people can actually absolutely learn how to be more charismatic. It comes with confidence and self-worth, right? You have it. I'm not charismatic if I'm hungover and have done something shameful the night before, right? There's that piece. I'm not charismatic at all. My energy is so low and I'm already at such a low vibrational state. I'm a different person. I'm like, I'm not. The reason why it comes across is so boom, it's because I'm in line, man. I am so sure and confident about what I've done. I got nothing to hide. I'm living correctly. I'm making good choices. So that's why it comes out. And my real self your real self comes out when you're living in alignment. And that's why I think all these people are like, because they're making dumb choices. What, are you watching porn all night with the doors shut and then come out? Your charisma is going to be dog shit the next day. Serious, because you're not living correctly. That's why I say people, once you start living correctly, people's real energies start coming out. They define themselves at this low vibrational state of while they're doing all these bad things. And they're like, that's just me. No, man, do the right things for a long enough period of time. And you'll see, you're going to start, you ever see a drug addict and they kind of come into like a rehab, but then they really start cleaning up. You see how they brighten up and like they look like different people. Then they're like they're charismatic. It's because, man, they're alive again. Their life source is not burned out, And so I think that strong life source, everyone can have it. Some brighter than others, right? Some are a little bit more mellow. I'm a little more turned up maybe than the average bear, but I think everyone can ride higher and everyone can be more clear and have more charisma if they're making the right choices.
Yeah. I love the idea of marrying the idea of living in alignment with also an emotional intelligence, which I never really thought of before the way you described it as being, having an awareness of what other people are, just being aware basically of the interaction and living in the moment.
Yes. Awareness is the sign of intelligence. Somebody, I don't believe someone's intelligent if they're lack awareness. And I mean environmental, self-aware. If you're just like, oh yeah, like, is a person who's doing stuff with a big jar of honey with bears behind him, is that person intelligent? Right? Probably not. Probably not, because they're not aware. And so awareness is the same with the self too. It's who am I? Why am I doing the things I'm doing? Okay, how am I engaging with this person? All that awareness is coming out. It's intelligence, because it takes you to be, a little bit outside yourself. And it's important, man.
Well, even before this conversation, it was pretty apparent. Some things were pretty apparent, but even more so through this conversation, how you know that in the automotive world, you go to Formula One and you get the highest performance there, and that trickles down to regular cars. We kind of look to someone like yourself as our Formula One.
We're the Hondas.
I appreciate that.
We're the.
No, see, you guys got to realize, man. You guys, and watch that self-talk, Doc, because our inner self doesn't have a sense of humor, right? It doesn't know. As Bruce Lee said, you talk to yourself, and your inner self doesn't have a sense of humor. It only understands what you're telling it. So I think you guys are the pinnacle of what I would see is like a successful, very, very like dialed in human being, right? Spine doctors, are you serious? Right? That's like guys like me look up, they're like, man, that's impressive, right? You got to remember, there's levels to this shit. Everyone's got their own, and we all come together as a cohesive unit.
Yeah.
We all come together as a cohesive unit to build this dense society, right? Everyone's got their levels. And so you guys have tons of stuff of pushing past through mental barriers and understanding complex topics that I don't understand, right? That I would actually have to learn from you. So it's that elite, like guys like you, we push for that elite level. Like it wasn't, you guys just didn't want to do whatever, you wanted to push that threshold. Why is that? That's what I think guys like us in this conversation, we're diving into. Why is that? Why do certain people kind of push into that tip of the spear in whatever avenue they're doing? And that's performance, right? That's performance.
And the thing is that what we're facing is perhaps something that I've heard somebody say that, what are professions, right? Professions are clergy, military, medicine. And why? Because in those fields, we face life and death in some way or another. Even attorneys, because a lot of the times they're involved in life and death kind of decisions. And true. And definitely agree with that. But you seem to face something that's a little bit more existential for all of us, right? And you kind of look directly into sometimes scary void that is within us, and you emerge out of that. And that's where I was going with this whole Formula One analogy, because I think though it speaks to a lot of people, and I'm not sure that I'm correct about this, but it certainly speaks to me. That is the fact that you go hard. When you went off the rails previously, you went off the rails hard. When you performed hard. And there is chaos in all of us. And there is this balance. And some cultures talk about the two different wolves and who they feed. And some people talk about good and evil. Nietzsche said that one has to have chaos in oneself in order to give birth to a dancing star. That chaos. And even like you have said that you had a vision for your body, literally for your body, where you created the tattoos, and the theme of your tattoos was the fight of that good and evil, right? Is that right?
Exactly.
So, and that we all face that, right? Whether we're aware of it or not. And there are different forces within us. And that's a different kind of facing. And granted, yes, we face blood and gore and function and so on and so forth. And that's what we do. And in the military, you face an enemy and you protect others, whether you want to or not, whether that's driving you or not at the time. But we all, at some point in our lives, face our darker moments. And I think this is what you've done, and what you're doing consistently. And I think that's what draws, and that's what you should keep on leaning into, because that's what we get out of it. And seeing that and identifying and making it okay that there is no perfect hero. right? We all have that.
Most of the time, absolutely not, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
hero is almost never perfect, and he shouldn't be, because then he's not heroic.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's a really
Yes.
good point.
Right?
I
If
like
he's
that.
untouchable, like Superman's got his kryptonite,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
He's got to be, for him to be relatable, or he'll float away into, like Alan Watts says, that Buddha, man, he's got to have these rooted salts, right?
Yeah.
This is like that rooted salt, because if not, it would be unbearable. You're like, man, it's just it'd be unbearable to deal with that level of perfection.
Yeah. Yeah. I love it.
It's,
Yeah. The thing is,
Oh no, I was gonna say we gotta let him go.
we do have to
oh,
let
it's
go.
good. Oh, good, man. This has been one of the best conversations I've had. Just so you guys know, it's flowed
nice.
extremely well. You guys are locked on. You guys are onto something with this line of dialogue, and I appreciate this format, because we've really got it to seamlessly flow into some cool topics. So I appreciate it, man. Diving into that void, man. And the goal is now not having to dive into that void anymore, right? We can come out of that void, and that's another thing, is we can come out of that void and not have to go back in it to keep experiencing these sadist, oh, I'm okay as long as I'm suffering type rotational things. Like, it's okay. We talk about pleasure. Yeah, pleasure, but you don't have to live miserably to be living a fulfilled life, right?
Yeah.
You can be experiencing joys, simple joys, rather than pleasures, right? Simple joys, not having to make the mistakes where you got to dive into the void again and save yourself again, and dive into the void and save. But you have those learned experiences that you go, okay, we had to do them to get to this level of awareness, and now we're here. We don't got to go back.
And something that I love that you've said a few times in other videos is that once you're in this vibration, you can't imagine not being in that vibration, right? Because it just feels
Well,
right.
It is right. And
Yeah.
it's how it should be. And that's why it feels right. And that's those blessings that we're constantly, that higher consciousness, that higher power wants to bless us, but we fight it by not doing the right things. And it's like, hey man, I'm trying to kind of like help you out, but I'm telling you what to do. And you're like, nah, later. Yeah, I'll eat better later. I'll get up early later. And that's causing us anxiety. It's causing us all these internal stripes anxiety is a state of punishment. People don't realize that. They go, I have anxiety. Yeah. What are you doing? Well, I'm doing all these things. No shit. You have anxiety. It's like obvious as shit why you have anxiety. It's like, yeah, you're sitting around doing nothing all day. Of course you're going to have anxiety, because your body's like, we need to get moving. Right? Like, we need to get moving. Like, that's
designed for
true.
this.
Yeah, it's like we're not. Yeah, start doing stuff. So, that nice vibrational state, we can live there. We can live there. And people need to start believing that. They go, oh, life's hard. We hear that all the time. Life's hard. No, it's not. No, it's fucking not. It's not hard. I don't believe it's hard at all. And once I started understanding that it's not hard, it wasn't. People go, life's hard. Well, you keep telling yourself that it's going to be hard. And did I say easy? Did I say, no, there's going to be people that are going to die in your life. There's going to be, but you can manage it better when you're living better. And you okay, that's a bad thing that happened, but it's natural. Things happen in life, but that's just how things go. And you start understanding that it doesn't have to be hard, and we can make this life much more hard. And that's kind of the book I got coming out, which is called The Hard Way. And a Navy SEAL turned French foreign Legionnaires fight to stay the course, right? And I write about how the hard way, right? You can choose a difficult path in life. That's important. You should choose a challenging path. The road, the Robert Frost quintessential proverbial road less traveled, right?
Yep.
But along that challenging road, we can absolutely make it much more hard, right? By making bad choices, by doing all these things. Choose a difficult path and then make it as easy on yourself as possible by making, the correct choices. And that's kind of what my line is life doesn't have to be hard. Life's actually pretty damn easy if you live it right.
Yeah, I like that. I guess the big question is then, will you be playing yourself in the movie version of this book?
man, if they write that check big enough, I'm doing it. If they write that check big enough, I'll do it. And you know, I'll settle for Brad Pitt or somebody, man. You know,
If you have to settle, yeah.
yeah, I'll settle for Brad Pitt or Tom Cruise, bro. Or maybe, you know, well, we'll see how it goes down. But
No, there's that guy that plays Reacher on Amazon. I think that would be a perfect person.
yeah, we need somebody a little more jacked, man. You know, somebody. No, I'll go with a Jason Statham, dude. You know, I'll go with a Jason Statham. Yeah, I like that. So I wanted to thank you guys for your time, and I'll tell you, if people need to get a hold of me, or I have my website, taylorcavanaugh.com, which people can get all my contact information there. But I'm also available on Instagram, TCavOfficial, and my YouTube, TCav TV, where people can get the long format of that realness, where we just send it, all videos, one take, no edits, stream of consciousness, never press the stop button.
Nice.
That's awesome.
Nice.
And we'll have all those links in the description.
Yeah.
With notes. Awesome.
Yeah.
All right.
This has been
Taylor, thank you so much. This has been
No, you guys, this is fantastic format. I really appreciate you guys. This was one of the most enjoyable podcasts I've done.
Likewise. Thank you. Friends, thank you for your attention. We hope you've enjoyed the conversation. If you find value, please remember to hit the like button to help us with our YouTube algorithm. Consider subscribing to the channel and turn on the notifications so you can stay up to date with everything going on with the channel. And please leave us a comment. Let us know what you thought about the show and also what you'd like to hear about in the future.